Hello and welcome to the first Elite Franchise Live, which is titled Next Gen Z. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Jodie Marsh, and I'm going to be your host this evening. I'm the commercial director at Elite Franchise, and I've been working really closely with our incredible panelists today that are here today to bring you a session that hopefully is packed with a lot of insight, advice, and inspiration, specifically tailored to highlight key aspects of franchising for the next Gen Z. Before we dive in, I'd like to really extend a big thank you to our sponsor of today's event, which is More Than Loft Ladders. Without their support, this event wouldn't have been possible. And a special thank you to Liam for not only sponsoring the event, but for also bringing this topic to us in the first place for discussion. Firstly, let me introduce you to our amazing panel. And for those of you that you can see us, I know you can't all come off mute just yet, but anybody that's got this lovely background is one of the panelists. So you can identify them quite easily. So I'll go in the order that I have them on my screen. So firstly, we've got Liam Hobbs, who is the managing director of More Than Loft Ladders, who's going to offer us a franchisor's perspective. Pitt Wilkins, even the CEO.
You can change my name if you want.
Of the British Franchise Association, bringing her invaluable industry-wide insight. Fiona Boswell, head of franchising at Knights, who's going to be providing with some legal and structural guidance. Emma Bentley, principal at Stagecoach Chichester, an award-winning young franchisee. And finally, last but not least, Brandon Ackerman, a franchise owner of Chips Away Exeter, who will also be offering us offering us a franchisee perspective, but who's also an award-winning young franchisee. So just a few quick housekeeping points before we begin. Please, can you keep yourselves on mute during the session just to help with the sound quality? I will be opening up the session towards the end for a Q&A. So feel free throughout the discussion, the panel, to drop your questions into the chat or write them down. I'll invite you to come off mute at the end. We do have a number of questions that have been pre-registered. So hopefully we're going to cover those during the discussions today. If we're not, I will ask them at the end if we haven't covered them. This session is being recorded, so if you'd like to watch it back or share it, the on-demand recording will be sent out shortly, and it should be live on the Elite Franchise site from tomorrow, all being well. I'm really super excited to bring together different voices and perspectives on what franchising looks like for the next generation. Oh my goodness, the session is going to be discussion based and have a range of questions which I'll steer towards each panelist based on their expertise. So whether you're a franchisor, a current franchisee, or someone exploring franchise opportunities, I hope today sparks new ideas and possibilities for your future. So let's get started, because there's enough about me rambling on, and I hope you leave today feeling informed, inspired, and empowered to take your next steps into the world of franchising. So firstly, what I want to do today, I was discussing this with our panelists before we jumped on. I interviewed my 24-year-old son yesterday about what franchising is, right? And I got asked the answer of what, like a McDonald's, right? Or I've asked other people before in the past, and they mentioned things like Harry Potter or basketball, baseball leagues. They're not quite sure what franchising actually is. And so I'm going to open it up really to our sponsor of today, Liam. Tell the panel and tell the people that are here that don't really understand what franchising is, what franchising is.
First word, amazing. So franchising, basically in layman's terms, is a proven model of a business. So somebody's done it before. They've made the mistakes, they've got the bruises, they've turned it into a successful business, and then they've packaged that up into a smaller unit that can work under the parent brand, enabling other people to follow that success.
Brilliant. Okay. And Pip, what would you say the situation is at the moment with regards to young people and franchising? Do we have enough young people in franchising? Do you think they're aware of what it is, or do we need to be doing more?
No, absolutely. We need more. We don't have enough. I'm stats queen, obviously. So the number of franchisees currently under the age of 30 in franchising is at less than 7%. And that has been a pretty consistent figure for the last 10 years when we look back through kind of survey research that we've done. So we need to do more as people in franchising, not just from a BFA perspective, but from a collective industry perspective, to make franchising a bit more of a go-to option for the next generation.
Brilliant, brilliant. So Brandon, what made you look at franchising when you first started out in the world of business? So, you know, why was franchising for you?
So I started when I sort of coming through uni and whatnot. Just wanted to explore the avenues into being self-employed. It's something I always wanted to do. Didn't want to just get a sort of standard job. My dad's been self-employed his whole life. My mum obviously seen the hardship of that. So wanted me to get a normal job. So we sort of found the balance, and the balance was franchising. So you had the ability and the scope to be independent and run with something and as your own, but also have the protecting and the branding of a household brand, really.
Okay, Brill. I just want to touch on something you said about you coming through uni. When you said you were coming through uni, did you know about franchising from uni, or did you find out from it somewhere else?
Very little, really. Like, even like leaving school, franchising wasn't really an option. It was either you leave, get a job, go to apprenticeship, or you go down the uni route. Even then at uni, it was you go get a graduate job, and that was it, really. So then I just started to do my own research and found it that way. I knew a little bit about it. Like you said earlier, the main brands, McDonald's, and then just found my own path into it, really.
Brill. And did you experience a similar thing, Emma, or did you know about franchising before you got into it, or was it purely by luck that you came across a franchising as an option for you?
Yeah, so with me, I actually found out about franchising from my hairdresser. So very random. My family hairdresser had at the time looked at buying a Tony and Guy franchise. So was talking, I was really young at the time and was talking to my parents, and I just was like being really nosy and listening in. But I remember her talking about franchises. And then that kind of opened up the doors to then ask my mum and dad, oh, but there's a Tony and Guy here. Like, does she own every single one? And that's when I started learning a bit more about what franchising was. And then it wasn't until years later that I realized there were actually a lot of different franchise models around. And that's when it kind of matched up with what I was doing and when it became relevant to me.
So did either of you get any education or anything like that through uni, through college, about what franchising was and about how that was a viable career path as an alternative to apprenticeships or studying?
I think I may have done one module on it back in school when we were learning business, but it was literally touched on of what it is. No, like, education of that this is an option, this is a route you can take.
Yeah. And I think that's the big thing, really. That and I know, Fiona, this is something quite close to your heart, isn't it? That at the moment, franchising is a completely missed category in most academic business courses. That we are missing a massive trick on educating the Gen Zs out there about how positive and impactful franchising can be for young entrepreneurs.
I think that's absolutely right. It is a real area that's missing from the majority of actual business courses when students study it, even from business studies and such, like at an A level. It's certainly not something that people who are at school when they have careers days, even from a young age, when parents go in and talk about what they do, they don't understand what a franchise is, or that people might be involved in varying different types of franchises, or the many different types of franchises and sectors in franchising that exist. So it's one of those things that needs to be showcased more as a viable future option for anybody that's interested at whatever age, but particularly at a young age when they're making decisions about what they might want to do for the future.
Okay, brilliant. So, Pip, have you got any thoughts on what we could do as a franchise community to get the message out there and the education piece out there more, besides brilliant webinars like this that can go out to educate the younger generation? Is there anything else that as a community that we can be doing to educate the next generation?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things we're doing at the BFA is we're going to send a copy of the British Franchise Journal, which has stats, it has case studies, it has loads of information about what franchising is and isn't, huge success stories from franchisees, advice pieces from advisors, and we're going to be sending that to universities and business schools UK-wide. So we printed versions of it. It's quite a hefty document. So we're drafting that to go out to try and raise the awareness and get it on the kind of educational agenda. But I think, you know, the key thing for us as people in franchising is making franchising more of a go-to option. You know, it's quite hard for somebody that's from I guess the younger generation to invest. There are startup costs obviously attached to coming into franchising, and with people, you know, if they've been to uni, they've probably got student debt, they want to get on the property ladder. So it's about making franchising more accessible to those people. And we've seen some great case studies of that, you know, with people like Liam, you know, with Snap-on Tools as another example, where they're looking at how they can make franchising more affordable for the younger generation to come on board, get involved, you know, buy their franchise over a period of time, but they get to kind of work in it and then work their way to becoming a franchisee. So it's kind of like an apprenticeship, but it's not. So I think, you know, the more brands that do that and the more we can talk about it, the better. But we need to be in the space that the next generation are on platforms like Insta and TikTok and YouTube, and using kind of video content, things that are short and easy to digest for them to look at to help them understand more what franchising is. You know, we saw like a 40% uplift in brands or people visiting our website when we ran a What is Franchising campaign on TikTok. So, you know, it's just getting people more aware of what it is and breaking down some of the misconceptions I think that people have. You know, franchising isn't just McDonald's and fast food.
Yeah. Okay. So, Liam, I'll come back to you. So, what do you find from the younger people? Because I know that you've been doing a lot of work with the universities and yourself, Emma. I know that you've both been doing that. But what are some of the misconceptions that you are coming across when you're obviously speaking to people in speaking to the next generation in the universities? And for those younger prospective franchisees on the call tonight, what would you say to them? What, you know, why is it so important and such a really good option for them to go into franchising?
I think it's just not spoke about enough at an early stage. So yeah, most young people have got a very sort of mixed view on what franchising is, and generally it's not right. So yeah, they'll mention films, sports franchises, which are completely different to business franchise. A lot of them won't even know what franchises are or what is already franchised until you sort of say, well, you use them every day, McDonald's, Subway, Pizza, all that sort of stuff. And then this, you know, it starts to click then that it's a business that you can buy into. But I just think that, yeah, in general, it's just not spoke about enough for Gen Z to be fully aware of what it is and what its benefits are. Which is why and yeah, I know Emma is as well, sort of talking with universities and business schools about getting into them and educating people at that level. I'm also doing work with some local football academies, sort of 18, 19-year-olds, just to raise, you know, the awareness and educate what franchising is. And for younger people, you know, who are interested in it, do your research, you know, reach out to franchisors, speak to them, find out what it's all about, go onto the BFA, there's tons of info on there. And just, yeah, don't discount it, don't listen to some of the myths that it's, you know, pyramid selling and stuff like that. It really isn't. It's a supportive community that you can get into and have the best chance of succeeding. I mean, Stat Queen Pip could tell us, you know, the difference between just a normal startup business and a franchise business. The worlds apart in terms of success rates. So yeah, for any Gen Zs considering franchising, I would give it thorough investigation, and it's a great option.
Okay, so you touched on obviously the pyramid schemes, and then I think it's one that we should call out, because I think that franchising does get that misconception some out there that it is a pyramid scheme. So I'm going to come to you, Fiona, on this one. What is the difference? You know, tell the panel what is the difference, and the major difference between a pyramid scheme and a franchise. You know.
Well, business format franchising, which is what we are focusing on today, is an ethical and viable method of growing a business in a box, effectively. An individual getting the right to use brand owners, concept, know-how, system and proprietary information for a period of time, essentially, and benefit from all of their proven and successful methodology in the way that they operate. Pyramid selling isn't actually what franchising is. There are some unethical business offerings out there which are based on people essentially earning income from the sales of which others make. Primarily, and there's no ethical reason for them to sell it other than to essentially profit themselves. They're not interested in your success necessarily as individuals. They don't have the same checks and balances and standards that franchises have to adhere to. They don't necessarily provide any ongoing support, which franchisors do for franchisees to help them maintain their businesses ongoing, training and all of that with it as well. So they're very scant on any elements like that, and there are operators out there who've engaged in those practices that have in some cases been called franchises, but they're not actually, because business format franchise includes a large element of ongoing support, which is quite distinct from what pyramid selling schemes and things like that are. So and so many different things. The franchise, people have been alluded to the hospitality side, which I suppose is the better known, but you have gyms, you have vets, you have all forms of opticians, you have quite, professional services, you have accountancy practices, you have kids clubs and entertainment centres, you have motor vehicle repairs and leisure. It's vast, and it's also prevalent and operating in quite an ethical manner in a number of UK business sectors out there, and none of those you'd ever think of being anything like a pyramid selling scheme.
No, definitely, it's a really good answer, Fiona. So we have had a few people join us, so I'll just pause there for a second just to remind everybody why we're here today. So we've obviously come together to discuss and build awareness about franchising for the next generation. There is going to be an opportunity at the end to ask any questions. So if you want to pop them into the chat, and we will come around to those at the end, or if you feel comfortable enough, you can raise your hand at the end when I open it up, and we can bring you off mute to ask any questions. Okay, so Emma, I'm going to come to you now, because I think you've been quiet for too long. So what advice would you give to somebody in their early to late 20s that's considering buying a franchise?
Well, I would say do it, because it's the best decision I've ever made. When I bought my franchise, I was 26. And I was at that crossroads that I think a lot of people, I would love to say I'm Gen Z, by the way, I'm not, I'm millennial, but I'm nearly Gen Z. But I was definitely at those crossroads in life where there was a social expectation to buy a house, to settle down, to look at kind of saving for a house deposit and get on the property ladder. And I always kind of say to people, what I did instead is I got on the business ladder, and that ladder for me keeps going. There's no ceiling, and that's going to mean that I can then get on the property ladder. So although I took a risk and I used that house deposit that was saved and put it into a business, it's the best risk I've ever taken. I think I'm very lucky that I've got a very good support system around me that were able to support that decision. I know that not everyone's as lucky to have that. So I think if you're somebody that's coming up against maybe those societal norms of people saying, no, you need to get on the property ladder, I'm kind of proof that actually You don't need to. And sometimes if you take a risk and you go the other way and you invest your money and your time and your energy into a franchise model, it can really pay off.
So would you say that it's easy being a franchisee?
No. No, nothing in life comes easy. I mean, I've heard buying a house isn't easy, so it looks like neither one was easy. But no, I wouldn't say it's easy. I think you have to be a certain type of person to run any kind of business, but also run any kind of franchise. And I think it's really important to, I do a personal SWOT analysis on myself. I know we all do that in business plans, but I look at my strengths and my weaknesses and where I need to maybe delegate and bring somebody in that has those strengths that are my weaknesses. And I think it's really important to look at it as a whole and see it as it's going to be hard work and you do have to put a lot of effort in, but the rewards are incredible. And I don't like calling it a lifestyle business because it's not a lifestyle business, but you can really control what you put in is what you get out. That is as simple as that. So you can control your success in a way.
Brilliant. And what about you, Brandon? Would you say it's easy being a franchisee, or has it been a hard slog?
It's definitely been hard. I 100% agree with Emma. Like anything, you get out what you put in. I think you'd have to be willing to work harder than the guy next to you. Make sacrifices, put the time and put the effort in. But like I started when I was 21. I'm 26 now, so literally coming up to the 5th year of it. And the first 5 years, what have definitely been the hardest thing I've ever done. But you see the other side of it, the positive side that I'm starting to come out the other end, building a great team around me. And yeah, you're starting to get a bit of your life back, but you're starting to build and see what can move to the future. So getting a little bit more time, getting a little bit, I know they say like passive income is an amazing thing, but it's a little bit more like that. And that's where I can now see my business growing into that idea that I won't have to be there all the time. At the minute I am, and that is all part of growing it. But yeah, I think if you like you said again, you get out what you put in, and that's nail on the head, really.
Do you think then, Brandon, that you have to be a certain type of individual to want to invest in a franchise at a younger age? Have you got to be quite driven and quite dedicated and know what you want?
I think so. I think you can have the average guy that sort of wants to go to work, come home and work Monday to Friday, and they completely switch off and leave it and forget about it. And then I think you've got some other type of people like myself, other type of people that can't switch off as such. Evenings, weekends, you're thinking about it, wanting to grow and trying to find that next step. And I think that is an idea of it. You've got to be willing to go that extra step as such.
Okay, brilliant. So, Liam, how do you think we can really get to these people that are driven, that are motivated, that are wanting to grow and expand and build their portfolios and really make something of themselves? How do you think we can attract them? What would you say to people out there that are considering it? Talk to me.
Yeah. Again, I'll go back to the education firstly. It starts there, educating younger people into what franchising is, and then it's up to franchisors as well. We can't all sit here saying there's no young people in franchising. We've got to be proactive and take it out there and make it more accessible. We're considering options where we can sort of possibly stagger the entry costs. So sort of we're looking into ways that we can make it more affordable to younger people. And I know that there's sort of things out there like the government startup loan that they're reasonably easily accessible. So it's down to franchisors, one sort of accepting, and I think we are coming round on that. There's a lot of talk about the lack of Gen Z in franchising. So it's down to franchisors to sort of realise that the younger people are the future, and we've got to make it easier for younger people to get into franchising.
Really good answer, Liam. I'm just going to loop round to something because I know I asked Brandon and Emma why they got into franchising, but I know that you've got a really, really good story that you're not telling us about, right? So I'm going to ask you the same question. Why did you get into franchising? And how?
I got into franchising because so as a 22-year-old, I set up in business. I knew everything. I could do no wrong. And it was actually in smart repair, Brandon, before sort of chips away and took off and Revive even existed. And I was really good at it. I ran a great business for a year or so, and then things like tax returns and bills and stuff came, and turned out the one thing I didn't know about running a business was that you had to save some money for the taxman. So I sort of retreated with my tail between my legs and went and got a job. But I was never happy, just working for somebody else. And I became sort of aware of franchising and sort of looked into it and realised that that was a way of me running my own business, making the calls of when I worked, what I did, but also having the support of a model there and people to sort of guide you and have that framework that nothing was forgotten. So yeah, I was just looking around at franchises and saw more than loft ladders and just really loved the concept of it. And the rest is history, so to say.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, so would you say there was a lot more support for you as a franchisee? Because I know you were originally a franchisee and then you became a franchisor. Would you say there was a lot more support for you then as a franchisee to help make sure that your business was a success and help you to grow?
Yes, the framework was there. It was okay. Something, as a frustrated franchisee, I've been able to bring those frustrations forward as a franchisor to sort of make sure that all the support and the correct level of support is there. But certainly when I came into franchising, there was that network and there was somebody to pick the phone up to and bounce things off if I wasn't sure. So yeah, definitely, franchising and going it alone are two different beasts altogether.
Okay, brilliant. And Fiona, are there any legal implications or things that legal standpoints that our younger prospective franchisees should be looking for when they're speaking to franchise networks, and to make sure that they're looking out for, that they're going to get or make sure that they're going to get that support for?
Yeah, I mean, part of taking on a franchise involves you signing a legal agreement. There is a franchise agreement, and in there and in the information that the franchisor should be providing you, they should outline what support they will be providing, what training, etc., that sort of thing in detail. With franchisors that are part of the British Franchise Association have to adhere to ethical standards in the way that they operate. And it's always useful to ask the question whether the franchisor is part of that organisation, because they have to adhere to a higher standard than others do, and make sure that they're operating in a fair way as concerns how they treat their franchisees. Part of the process, if you are a BFA member, is also that there is a disclosure document that franchisors have to provide to franchisees that gives them extra information about that individual business and its credibility and track record in franchising as well. So it's that sort of thing that's quite key as well from an ethical perspective. And there is a clearly outlined process in the legal agreement that clarifies to franchisees how long they've got the right to operate a franchise, what areas they can operate in if it's on an exclusive basis, gives them an opportunity to renew the franchise, that sort of thing. So it is a clearly outlined legal process that can give franchisees comfort that they've acquired something which they then have the right and opportunity to sell on at a later date if they want to. So it's an asset for them.
Brilliant. Okay, so Pip, you've been very quiet again, and I know you don't like being quiet. So what should the younger generation look for in a franchise, when they're considering where to go with it?
Can I answer my own question instead? No, everything that Fiona's spoken about, if somebody's looking to buy into a franchise, the key thing that they need to do above and beyond anything from a due diligence perspective is find something that they care about, find something that they love. Most people that you speak to have fallen into franchising by accident because they found a brand or something they're passionate about, including myself. I came in when I was 19. The support that's there in this franchising family that we have is immense for somebody that maybe doesn't have business experience, wants to tap in and spend time with other people and bounce off them. So the most important thing is that they find something that they're going to enjoy doing, because they're going to do it every day. That's what makes it work for Brandon and for Emma, is they both fell into something that they really love. They did their research. They were like, this is something that's going to make me want to get out of bed every day and build my future. Then you look at all of the other stuff. How long's the franchisor been trading? What does the support infrastructure look like? How much is it going to cost? How much money do I need? But the most important thing is find something that's going to make you smile every day and make you happy, because then it makes the hard work feel a lot easier. The Gen Z, they want this autonomy and flexibility. So us going on about franchising being operating guidelines and the legals and all of that isn't going to appeal. It's about us as a sector changing our messaging and modernizing that to fit with the next gen, and saying you can start your business without starting from scratch. That's one of the messages. Own it, grow it your way, but with support behind you. It's all of us changing the way we speak about franchising and changing the terminology that we so often use that is attracting people in their middle ages. Nothing wrong with that on the basis I'm getting close to it. But, it's, for me, it's about us changing where we are and how we talk to people to make franchising more appealing, because it does everything for someone that's 21 that it can do for someone that's 41 and 61. It's the way we speak to them. I think that is going to be the really important part of getting this next wave of Brandons and Emmas to go, franchising's right for us. But they've got to find something they love. And, there's 1,000 systems in the UK market. It touches us every day. We just need to highlight that and really put it, way up there for them.
Okay, brilliant answer, Pip. And we'll come back to your question. If you'd like to drop it into the chat, we can ask it in question time at the end. Emma, so how you're 21, 22 when you were first considering a franchise, and you hadn't met somebody in the hairdressers that told you about Tony and Guy. How would our franchise network now, or our franchise brands, attract you into franchising? How would we do that?
I think there's a huge space for what Liam's doing, essentially, and what I'm trying to do by going into schools, universities. I went to a very specialist university with a very specialist subject. So I went and studied music and got my music degree. And obviously my franchise is Stagecoach, performing arts. That connects quite well and goes back to what Pip's saying about finding something that you love. I know for a fact that if Stagecoach head office came in to that university, I'm going to bet a lot of money on the fact that you would get about at least five people out of 20 that would show huge interest if they're just about to graduate into either working for the brand or to look potentially at buying a franchise. But there just weren't those conversations. There were never those people that were coming into those universities. Obviously, I think school is a bit premature, unless you've got very wealthy grandparents. I think that's a bit premature. But if we're looking at universities, and especially courses that are now a little bit longer, you're looking at that 21, 22. So I think that there's a real gap in the market for people going into universities and speaking to people on business courses and courses that relate directly to their franchise.
Brilliant. And the same question, really, I suppose, Brandon, over to you. Because I know that you learned about franchising because of your family and your parents and things like that. So imagine that you weren't immersed in that world back when you were 21. How would we have attracted you? Or even now, if you weren't in franchising now, how could we attract you? What would make your
going sort of back to what Liam's touched on, like I was like every really lot of young lads, their ideal job and lifestyle is to be a professional footballer. And that I was the same. I was that lad, 16, 17, and then that becomes reality that isn't an option as such. And then a lot of young lads are sort of stuck like, oh, what do we do? So to provide that, the education maybe into football clubs and academies is a big option. And then it's great. Yeah, you've got the idea of what a franchise is now, but then you've got that massive great sum of how to get into it. So then help and some sort of scheme, I don't know, to help with the funding would help again. I was quite lucky that I managed at uni. I managed to live at home, saved a student loan. Through COVID, managed to get a bounce back loan. Ran a different business, so managed to save up. So I created my pot that way. But again, not everyone's always quite so fortunate, and we've got other things going on. So a little bit of help with funding in different ways of funding would massively help, I think.
Okay, brilliant. Well, we'll loop back round to funding in a second, because there's just something that you touched on there, with regards to experience. I think you did as well, Emma, with you being on a music course as well. So, Liam, I'm just going to come back to you for a second. So I'm a young 23-year-old. Yes, I know. I'm not much off that now, but I'm just finished business course in university, and I've heard about franchising now because somebody's been into the uni and I know what it is, but I've got no experience. I don't know how to dance like Stagecoach, or I don't know how to repair dents on a chips away, or I don't even know how to use a drill, to even consider going into a more than one license franchise. So what support and training is there out there within franchising networks for people with no experience? Have I got to know about how to put a loft ladder in to work for more than loft ladders? What does that look like?
For us, yeah, more than obviously it's an advantage if you're handy. But we've got a robust training program that we invite people in for a discovery day. So if somebody's interested in a franchise with us, we'll have a couple of initial conversations, and then before anything gets too serious, we'll invite them in for a day so that they can spend a day with us. They can go out on a job, they can have a go, and sort of just get a feel for if it's something that they would be interested in before getting further down the line. And then once we've sort of agreed that they want to go into it, then we do a 2-week training program for new franchisees, but it doesn't stop at the end of that 2 weeks. It's ongoing. So we provide practical support on an ongoing basis. We'll go out to site if they're struggling with anything. It's in our interests to help that franchisee succeed. So we offer practical training as well as sort of business training. We've recently launched the More Than Loft Ladders Academy.
Wow. Okay.
So we have 2 business coaches that work alongside us and do one-to-one mentoring with the franchisees to help them achieve their goals and make sure that they're on track for what they want to get. And that works really well, because as good as a relationship is between franchisor and franchisee, sometimes there's things that the franchisee is not totally happy sharing with the franchisor. They've got that sort of independent person that they can talk to and keep them on track on the business side of things, as well as obviously coming to us for the more practical
training. Brilliant. So what you're saying is I don't really need to know how to fit a ladder, because you're going to teach me how to do that. I just need to be able to hold a drill and not drill through my finger. Yeah.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Okay. So Pip, would you say that the majority of the franchise brands within the franchising community, which I'm going to go back to you for stats now, how many franchise brands are there in the UK now, Pip Wilkins?
1,009.
There you go. So out of those 1,009, would you say that the biggest percentage of those you don't need to have any specialist training to become part of, or do the majority of these brands offer training? Where would you say that sits?
All of them should offer training, and it's one of the key questions as part of a franchisee's due diligence process is, look, what training and support do you offer? how are you going to get me up and running? How are you going to teach me what you teach me? You know, there are some rare brands, you know, so Boots opticians are looking for optometrists. So you might need to be an optometrist before you can be a Boots optician franchise. But generally, the franchisor should be able to take you with basic knowledge, you know, and a brain, and teach you how to do the franchise opportunity that they have. It's really rare that they will seek experience within their sector. You know, a lot of them want to train you to do it the right way, where you're not coming in with bad habits because, you know, you've been a plumber before and then you want to do it your way as opposed to the formula that they have that works. So yeah, I would say in most cases that you don't need experience. The franchisor is going to teach you how to do what you do. And you can talk to other franchisees. Part of the due diligence process in finding out if it's the right fit for you is to go and talk to people. And you can say, look, have you got someone from a similar background to me or a similar age, someone that I can talk to so I can understand what it was like for them when they went on the journey to buying a franchise? Because the franchisees will tell you what it really looks like from their perspective and where they struggled in training. So, you know, it's the franchisor is there to make sure it works for you. And if it's not the right fit, the franchisor shouldn't be taking you on. So it's as much about them choosing you as you choosing them. So, you know, you'll find out as you go through the process, but, you know, find them, go and talk to them. Franchising is a touchable, feelable, pokeable thing. And you can spend time talking to franchisors and franchisees within the network to make sure that it's the right
fit
blend. You don't marry someone without dating them first, do you? So
oh, you watch Maths. Married at first sight, just throwing that out there. Great answer though, Pip, great answer. So we are going to close shortly the live webinar section. So I just wanted to remind everybody that if you have got any questions, if you pop them into the chat, or if you feel happy enough to come off mute, you can raise your hand at the end and we can ask the questions from there. But if you want to drop into the chat, I'll ask those shortly. But I just want to link all the way back round to the funding. So Brandon, when you took out your franchise, how did you fund it?
So I touched on it slightly earlier. Before I started a franchise at uni, I ran a car parts business online. So I didn't really take much of a wage out of that. I lived at home at the time. So saved for a rainy day, really. I went to uni, again, lived at home. So all my student finance, I secretly put away in a pocket. Didn't spend it too much. And then I got a bounce back loan sort of through COVID, through the government, and sort of added it all together and just went for it, shot for it.
Okay, brilliant. So I mean, I know you touched on yours earlier. Was yours a similar story to Brandon's? Did you save or did you
slightly different. So I actually went to NatWest. I remember literally walking, I can't believe I was this naive. I put like a really smart Zara suit on and walked to my nearest NatWest branch. And I genuinely walked in and went, would it be at all possible if I could get a business loan? Which that didn't work, by the way. So they then obviously organised lots of phone calls, and it wasn't easy because I had to submit all of my business plans and cash flows, and we went back and forth, but we eventually got the number that I needed to top it up alongside my house deposit that I'd saved. So yeah, it was hard. It was quite tight, but we got there.
Got there in the end. And I think Liam, do you want to just touch on the funding options that are available for younger franchisees at the moment, because I know you're doing a lot of work with that at the moment?
Yeah, so I mean, we use most of our franchisees have used the government startup loan to get in. Most franchises, I would say probably 90% of them will have a relationship with a finance company that has already pre-approved their model. Or in our case, using the startup loans, we have an already pre-approved business plan. So you can get that support from the franchises to help you get franchising. And then, as I said earlier, you know, there's a movement towards trying to make this more affordable to younger people who might not be able to get the traditional routes of franchising, i.e. borrowing from a high street bank. So I know that myself and a number of the franchisors are looking into ways that we can potentially lower the startup fee and sort of pay over time. How that looks at the minute, we don't know, because there's all sorts of regulations and stuff around it. But I know there's a strong appetite out there for franchisors to help younger people who are struggling to get the full amount of funding.
Okay, and is there anything, Fiona, that you can add to that from like a legal standpoint with regards to the funding? Is there anything that you know of that would help potential franchisees?
Not really. There are some in the sense there are ways to address deferred and part payment arrangements, but it does have to be structured quite carefully. And with most franchises, there is an element of needing to put something towards it at least. I do know a number of franchisors that have part invested with younger franchisees, particularly apprentices that are coming on and things like that. So they've gone into a bit more of what we would call a joint venture model, where they're part of the business and the franchisee acquires the shares in the business over time, that sort of thing. So there are structures that can be put in place across networks to address some of the funding issues when that a particular franchisee might have at an early stage, particularly younger franchisees. So that is some of the things that they can look at in that way.
Okay, brilliant. Thanks, Fiona. So I'm going to just bring the live chat to an end now. So now it's going to come to questions. So we'll get ready. I'll take a big breath because you're going to under pressure. So I'm going to go to the chat first. And I'm going to go to a question from Linda, who's still there. So do you want me to ask it, Linda, or do you want to come off mute and ask it?
I'll come off. Hi guys.
Yeah, okay.
Hi, great discussion so far. Thanks very much. And Brandon and Emma, you are so brave and so young. Congratulations on your success so far. My question is, obviously you're new into the franchisee industry. What kind of support do you get from your franchisor from a growth perspective? So I'm not talking about system, I'm not talking about training, I'm talking about like coaching. What kind of support do you currently get for either of your franchisor, please?
Do you want to go first, Brandon?
Yeah, I can do. So when I started to grow, I started really, really early. So within 6 months, I decided that I wanted to go from a mobile van, which is where you start, into a body shop. And they were really, really forthcoming with it. I thought when I started the franchise, we sort of outlined where I wanted to go with it. That's why I initially went with them, because they were really forthcoming and open, and sort of showed me the route of what other guys have done in the network. There's Chipsway are a business that have been going for years, so there's examples of people that have been doing it for years. So welcoming you that way, entering you into discussion with other guys that have been doing it. My mentor, we had a mentor at the start. He had grown into what we call a car care center, which is essentially like a body shop. He provided information and questions, and yeah, they're always on the end of the phone with anything that we ever wanted to sort of ask and inquiry.
Yeah,
What about you, Emma?
So similar to Brandon, we had something called RFMs, so regional franchise managers. They're now called business consultants. So as far as I'm aware, as per my franchise agreement, they stay with us. And essentially any questions we've got regarding growth or expansion, they're there. They will sit down and have kind of a face-to-face meeting. We'll do an orbital business plan, look at the areas in the business and the territory that have potential for growth. I think hopefully this kind of answers your question, Linda, but they'll also introduce you to other people in the network that maybe have had similar ideas with growth. So for example, in my situation, it would be growing more classes on different days and looking at the days of the week that would attract and looking at what's worked and what hasn't. But really they're there at any point for me to pick up the phone and say, look, I'm thinking of growing. And I've never personally had an experience where they've said, don't do that. It's all very much from a supportive standpoint.
Okay, brilliant. And hopefully, Linda, that's covered, answered your question. We've got time, depending on how long the answers are, possibly for 1 or 2 more questions. So we'll go to a question from Simon, who sat there patiently waiting for me. He's asked a few, but I'm going to go with the last one, Simon, which is, Liam, what does franchising look like for the young franchisee in More Than Loft Ladders?
It looks very good, actually. I mean, I'm fortunate enough to have 3. One of them is 30 this year, but 3 Gen Z franchisees in the network, and they're all newer franchisees that have come on since my tenure, and they are absolutely smashing it. They've transformed it. They've given, you know, the older boys a kick up the backside, and that's sort of fueled my hunger for getting younger people into the business. So yeah, I say we've got quite a young network. We're certainly below the average age, which I believe is 49, I think. So yeah, we've got a couple of mid-20-year-olds, a 30-year-old, and they're shaping what More Than Loft Ladders is going to be. So yeah, for within our business, it looks very good for Gen Z.
Thanks, Liam. Simon, have you got an add-on to that question? I want to try and squeeze one more question in. So,
just a real quick one. I mean, I just want to say what an absolute privilege it is to meet 2 young, pioneering franchisees in Brandon and Emma, and I feel absolutely humble that you've taken the plunge. I mean, I've been in franchising a long time. I started in my late 30s, and you know, I wish I would have started 10 years earlier. So congratulations to you both. And Brandon, long soon after the professional footballers have retired, my friend, you'll still have your Ferrari in the garage, and you won't have all the aches and pains to show for it. So well done, both of you. You're absolute credit to the industry.
Thanks, Simon. And final question for today is from Ed. Ed, I'll ask it for you, but no doubt you'll probably jump on. But the Pip and Fiona, but then he's added maybe one from everybody, actually. Is there any franchise-specific terminology that you see as an opportunity to rebrand for the younger generation?
Most of it. Most of it. I just think that the way that the next generation, particularly Gen Z, talk is very different from the way that we do it, which is, you know, using words like standards, ethics. It's all the important stuff, but it means jack shit to them, and it's something I think that we just need to. I was really trying hard not to swear for the whole thing.
I know.
It's to look at stuff differently. You know, we say be in business for yourself, but not by yourself. There's loads of different ways to say that's going to be more appealing to the next generation. Be your own boss, but with backup. You know, build your hustle, but with squad support. You know, there's loads of different things that we can look at that would be more appealing, but it says the same thing, but aimed at them. It doesn't take away from the fact that, you know, the standard person that does invest in a franchise that is the average age of 49 doesn't want to hear that. They want to hear build your brand, but with the backup and support of a national association or a national business. But for me, I think it's rewording the way that we speak to attract the people that we want in our franchise. Not everybody necessarily wants next generation franchisees. You know, there's 1,000 systems, you know, 200 of them might say, you know, the average age of a person in our franchise network does need to be 49. But for those that want to attract the next generation, it's a little bit on them and on us as an association, and you as a magazine to start talking to the people of tomorrow in the way that they speak and in the places that they talk.
I think that goes from the legal perspective as well. Some of the terminology, I mean, we on this call are using the terms franchisees and franchisors. That means nothing in itself. It's understanding what is the relationship between the 2 business owners and perhaps explaining that in a more accessible way so that people better understand how franchising works and how it helps them to grow their own business with support of someone who's done it in a proven and successful way. I think some of the terminology also creates a little bit of a barrier. I think that young people, particularly Gen Z, are very interested in values. and in businesses that have core values and work in a sustainable and moral way. I think they are value driven, and that there is a lot to be said for ethical franchising as being a value driven industry in the way that it operates and supports both parties, and that they are working together to ensure the success of each other, and it perhaps focusing on that and the value driven aspects of franchising would be a great way to attract more young people to it.
1000%.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Can I chip in there, Jodie?
Of course you can, Ed.
All right, sorry, changing the format or whatever, but it's really good to hear that from both of you, because I agree with the statements that you've both made there, and in particular, speaking to people that are younger in a language they understand where they are is important. But also, it's good to hear that legally there's not any kind of terminology that you have to put out there initially in the front end. I guess perhaps further down the line there is, but yeah, it's really good to hear. The other thing that I think is important is, and I've lost it now. I'm so sorry, Fiona. What was your last point there that you made?
Was about values primarily, that
Yes.
it's
So
a value-driven industry.
Yeah, so it reminds me of something that I've been talking about to a few people recently, and that's, I think some franchise brands forget that they've got two brands that they've got to operate. So they build up fantastic front end for the service or delivery that they're providing, but they forget to do exactly the same, build out those values, the core message, the strapline, all of the good stuff on the franchise side of things. So I think there's a piece of work there that could be done for a lot of brands, is to think of their second business, the franchise side, and go through those core values and build them out, and core messaging and the values that go with it.
Thanks, Ed. So now you've taken over my 3 minutes of my closing section. I'm going to do the quickest close ever. So thank you to everybody who's joined us today for the Elite Franchise Live Next Gen Z. A huge thank you to all of our panelists for giving up their time and sharing your valuable insights. I know it's taken a lot of collaboration to bring this session together, but I hope you've all found it inspiring and as informative as we have. As a reminder, the session has been recorded and will be available on demand. So if you joined us late or want to revisit anything, keep an eye on your inbox, and we'll be sending out to all attendees shortly. For those of you watching on demand, we're sorry you couldn't be with us live, but the conversation doesn't stop here. Use the hashtag EF Live on LinkedIn or X to share all your thoughts or ask any follow-up questions, or connect with any of our panelists if you think of something after that you want to ask, and we'll be happy to continue the discussion. We're thrilled to let you know that this is just the beginning. Elite Franchise Live is now going to be a quarterly event. So our next session will be taking place on the 15th of July, sponsored by the lovely Stagecoach and Drama Kids, and it'll be titled Franchise Her Future. So I'm going to leave that one hanging there for now, but we'd love to see you all there. But to be the first to hear more, or head over to the Elite Franchise website and subscribe to register your interest, and we will send you updates of the information and the timings, etc. Thanks again for being part of today's session, and until next time, take care and keep reaching for your next step in franchising. Bye for now.